I'm an aspiring pilot from Chicago, 17 years old, and I'm a junior in high school. And I'm extremely motivated to one day be an airline pilot for a major airline.
I have been around the world. I flew military aircraft all around the world, different areas and hostile areas. And I've learned a lot from that. And a lot of that has carried me to the point that I am right now.
How are you doing this morning, Captain John?
I'm doing just fantastic. How about yourself, Sean?
I'm doing pretty good. Spring break just ended, so back in the flow of things, normal.
Well, that's great.
Yes, sir. All right, so my first question for you this morning is, me being a teen aspiring pilot for a major airline in the future, what are some words of advice you can give me, or just the people in general who will watch this interview?
Words of advice or wisdom is you want to start early, and once you start, you want to continue the continuity between from one phase to the next. You don't want to have any downtime in there, and then you want to be in a program that is it has a proven record for the pilots that it trains, turns out, and one that abides by all the standards and procedures. They don't cut corners, anything like that, and be timely. Be timely in everything that you do, and don't hesitate to ask questions if you're not clear on anything, and be just be a team player.
Okay, interesting. So I see like a major theme throughout all of this is consistency throughout your whole training and career as a pilot.
Correct.
Being consistent will, help you out, especially in the long run.
Yes.
And productive.
Yes, absolutely.
So like, you think there's any extracurricular activities you can do building up to the process that can help you throughout this whole thing?
In any leadership role that you can take in areas other than aviation would benefit you. That comes with just able to handle situations in the airplane, just your leadership role within other type organizations, I would say.
Okay. And that kind of goes like into the next question of what are some responsibilities of an airline pilot, not just inside the plane, but outside the plane? When we talk about, when you walk into a plane as a passenger, you see the pilots going through the flows and checklists, sometimes doing a walk around or whatever, going through all of those procedures. But what are some other opportunities, outside of just flying the aircraft?
So there's check airman duties. We have chief pilot, assistant chief pilots. We have pilots in the training center. So it's a number of things that we can do other than just being a pilot. We have a number of organizations that pilots will be able to participate in, such as could be one, such as the union. We have the airlines have a union for the pilots, so they have officers that take part in that. So it's a number of things that can get into aside from doing the pilot job every day.
Okay. When you say chief pilot, is that like the pilot above the pilots, I would assume? Like, could you explain some of the responsibilities or the duties of them?
The manager, a chief pilot is a pilot that's manager of a particular base.
Okay.
Say Chicago. In Chicago, it's a pilot base. So there we have a chief pilot. There was a chief pilot there and an assistant chief pilot. And we have about 13, 14 crew bases around the system, that each one of those bases has a chief pilot and an assistant chief pilot. So they are basically responsible for the group of pilots that's in that particular base.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So there's tiers to it, basically.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Cool. What would be some of the qualifications of becoming airline pilot for one of the major airlines?
Well, the first thing you're going to need is to be healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to need to be able to attain a medical certificate, first or second class. And then you're going to need a certain number of flight hours. Now, all airlines have different requirements of what they want for the minimums to be qualified for a job with them. So you just got to, just depending on the airline that you are trying to get on with, you need to look at their requirements, because across the system, they are all different. One may want 2,500 hours total time, and another one may ask for 3,000 hours total time. Some of them may ask for so much jet time. Whatever that particular company feel like they should have for qualifications, that's what they will operate around in the hiring process.
Okay. Could you walk me through like a very just very simple walkthrough of the hiring process at a major airline?
The hiring process,
Yeah. So like from application to interview, getting hired.
again, each airline has a different process. Some airlines have a psychological test that they will give you. Some airlines will just bring you in and make the environment as comfortable as possible. So you'll put your application in, and somebody in HR start to go through the applications, and depending on the required number of pilots that they need, they'll start calling people in. And once they get on campus of the company, then they'll start their hiring process. Some of them will have one-on-one type retirements. Some of them will have group retirements. It varies from airline to airline. Some airlines will give you a demonstration of what their facilities are like as far as training. They will have a session that just talks strictly about what goes on in the training process, and for a tour of the training facilities.
Okay. And one more question about the airlines. What would you say are some of the benefits you would enjoy being a major airline pilot?
Benefits? Well, I would say time off, and another benefit is being able to go many places just as you work. You'll end up in destinations that you probably never would visit unless you were a pilot. And once you get to these different destinations, you have time. We have time we have rest requirements, so there's plenty of time to see a few things in the different cities that you fly to. And of course, the pay is good pay for what you do, but you're worth what they pay you.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So my next question would be, how have you seen the airlines like over the years change in terms of hiring and expansion?
Hiring and expansion kind of goes with how many pilots, the growth of the company,
Okay.
how many pilots you have retiring at certain times. So the hiring process takes in several different areas for expansion. For an example, when I first started flying commercially, we only had 250 pilots, 25 airplanes, and now we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 to 800 airplanes now. So just think about the hiring process, or the hiring needs that we had over that period of time. So it just depends on the growth and how many pilots you're losing through retirement. It just depends on basically growth and expansion.
That makes perfect sense. You know, Boeing forecasts we're going to need a lot of pilots, thousands upon thousands of pilots within the next 10 or 15 years. People are traveling more and more as the years go. Pre-COVID, people are traveling more and more. More and more planes were being bought by the airlines. So, I would assume the airlines don't want their planes on the ground. They want them to be, flying, making money. So the hiring is just gonna blow up more and more as they need more pilots, like you just said.
Absolutely. Frequency is, you'll find that the frequency in the use of airplanes has really gone up over the years with all of the airlines.
Okay.
You're right. Airplane doesn't make money sitting on the ground.
Exactly. It's crazy. I think about, I look at an airline ticket price, and then I would guess, the airplane would do a couple trips a day, and then multiply that by the number of passengers carried, even though you got to take a lot of costs out because you got to pay for the gas, the food, all of that stuff. But still, I'm pretty sure the industry is very lucrative for the airlines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And this is kind of going to my last question. How has aviation impacted your life, and what would you like your legacy to be?
How has aviation impacted my life? It's made me more structured in my daily activities. I have an Air Force background, so it started there with the Air Force. So over the years, when I separated from the Air Force and came to fly commercially, the procedures and the process that we operated was pretty standard. So you would be able to go from any pilot to another pilot to fly with, and your procedures are going to be the same. And the reason for that is obviously safety. You don't want to get paired up with somebody that does something one way one day, and then another pilot the next day have their own way of doing things. So strictly procedurally, and as far as my legacy, I would say my stick-to-itness is what I would like for people to know about my legacy, which they do. I went from a check pilot, and then in addition to being a check pilot, I was in recruiting, and I was in the training portions of our pilot group. So I never walked away from any of those jobs. I stayed from the time that I began each job on the side in the company. I stayed there until I retired. So I would say my legacy was I never would leave a position like that. I stuck with the areas that I was working in, because there are people that they would burn out. And so, but I never burned out.
And that's real important. I would definitely say that's real important. And then we can go back a little bit to you talked about the Air Force. You came from that background. What are some of those pathways to becoming a pilot, a commercial pilot for a major airline? Because some people don't go to the military; they go a whole nother route.
Well, you have your besides the military, you have corporate. There are a lot of corporate pilots that they start knowing that they one day they want to get into the commercial aviation side of it. But that's besides the military. Corporate flying is probably the largest area that we get pilots coming in from, besides all branches of military.
Makes sense. Yeah, I didn't really learn about corporate until I started, getting more and more into aviation, going to certain events. That's something I would never really think about. I wouldn't think. I mean, I really could fly for this, big old company, fly their executives around, and get paid for it, and fly, the private jets and things. I would only think before it was, military or commercial.
Right.
Right? But there's a whole lot of, other branches, like you just said, in between it all. There's a whole just field there.
Absolutely. But,
I want to thank you again, though, for sitting down and talking to me. You helped me learn a lot today, a whole lot, as usual. I like picking people's brains for wisdom.
Well, there's still a lot to learn, so don't hesitate to ask questions again. Find out things unless you
gotta go get it. Be aggressive.
That's it. I see Sean as being really proactive in his search, his approach to aviation. He's going to be one of these pilots that he's going to be the leader of the group one day.
First off, I greatly admire him, especially for his role within the aviation community. He was one of the first out there, so that's a huge deal, especially being a minority like me, getting into the airline. So I greatly admire that. And he has a lot of wisdom, which is good. And it's good that he wants to spread that information and help younger people out like me, get into the aviation scene. Yeah, Captain Don definitely inspires me to be an airline pilot one day because, Captain Don was one of the first African-American airline pilots for Southwest Airlines, behind another mentor of mine, Lou Freeman. There's a lot of wisdom there, and there's just a lot of knowledge to go around. And he definitely inspires me to one day pass all of my knowledge to the youth like me.
I've done all the flying that I want to do, and now I just want to enjoy my retirement. And I do.